Welcome, everyone, to a webinar entitled Catholic Higher Education in a Culture of Death, Creating the World's Most Faithful Catholic Medical School, with presenters Benedictine College President Stephen Minnis, Jere Palazzolo, and Dr. George Mychaskiw. My name is Sebastian Mahfood, and I'm the director of ITEST. The Institute for Theological Encounter with Science and Technology, ITEST, is an association of theologians, scientists, and others committed to a Catholic worldview in which faith and science collaborate in exploring the truth. ITEST explores truth theologically in the wisdom traditions of the human community and in the data studied in the sciences. ITEST's mission is to foster and disseminate the Catholic position that science and faith in God are complementary paths to human fulfillment. Before I introduce our first presenter, Deacon and Dr. Michael Giuliano will offer our opening prayer. Deacon Giuliano serves at Our Lady of Mount Carmel Parish in Tenafly, New Jersey, with primary ministry as co-worker for life with the Sisters of Life. He is also the Associate Dean for Faculty, Resident, and Student Development at Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine. Deacon Giuliano?
Let's begin as we begin all things. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We thank you, Lord, for the gift of your love and the gift of the skills to serve others in such a special way. We thank you for the opportunity to gather together today to build the kingdom of God. And we ask you, Lord, for the gift of wisdom of Solomon as we deliberate the way forward. Help us, Lord, always to walk in faith and hope, but most of all in love. Help us, Lord, to always lead with love as we strive to follow your will and your way. And help us, Lord, to create a place where we can shepherd the next generation of Catholic physicians. And together, for those that know it, please pray with me. This is a prayer to the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of your faithful and kindle in us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created, and you shall renew the face of the earth. O God, who by the gift of the Holy Spirit instructs the heart of the faithful, grant that by that same Holy Spirit we may be truly wise and ever rejoice in his consolations through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Giuliano. And now I'm delighted to introduce our first presenter. Benedictine College President Stephen Minnis is widely regarded as one of the most dynamic and inspirational leaders in Catholic education today. A native of St. Joseph, Missouri, Minnis graduated from Benedictine College in 1982. After Benedictine College, he obtained his Juris Doctorate degree from Washburn University and an MBA from Baker University. As an attorney, he served as Assistant District Attorney and as General Attorney, Director, Regulatory Policy at Sprint Corporation before becoming president of Benedictine College in 2004. Prior to becoming president, he served on the Benedictine Board of Directors for 12 years. President Minnis is beginning his 19th year as president of Benedictine College. President Minnis's presentation is entitled Catholic Higher Education in the New Millennium. President Minnis, take it away.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's really an honor to be on part of this group. I got to tell you, when I looked at this impressive lineup of speakers, I felt like, there's an old Tonight Show with George Goebel, and he followed Bob Hope and Dean Martin, and he said, "You ever think of the world as a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes?" And so that's kind of how I feel today, right? But I appreciate this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Benedictine College and about this incredible opportunity for the culture to start a new medical school, a faithful Catholic medical school on our campus. I appreciate this opportunity. I thought I'd probably tell you a little bit about Benedictine College so you know who we are, and then talk about why starting this medical school is so important, but why on our campus it makes a lot of sense. So I'll give you a little bit of history. Benedictine College is in Atchison, Kansas. That's about 40 minutes north of Kansas City. We were founded in 1858, so 3 years before the Civil War. So everybody knows their history, right? 3 years before the Civil War on the Kansas and Missouri border. Not a great place to start anything, okay? But the Benedictine monks were tough and wanted to start a school for the Lord's service. And so when you think about our history, it's pretty interesting. So this is a school that has survived the Civil War. 80% of the colleges and universities that were founded before the Civil War don't exist anymore, but we still do. We survived 2 pandemics and 2 world wars and the Great Depression, the civil unrest of the 60s, the financial burdens of the 70s and 80s. So a lot of ups and downs in our 165-year history, but I think it's probably safe to say the last 15 years or so have been a true blessing for us. We have last 15 years, our enrollment's doubled. We have now over 2,200 full-time undergraduate students. We have built 14 new residence halls, 6 academic buildings, a new dining hall, a new student recreation center. We built new or renovated every dorm room and every classroom and every athletic facility on our campus. We've started new programs on our campus, which are, we started nursing for one, so that was stuck our toe into healthcare. But we've also started 2 programs that are pretty unusual for small liberal arts colleges, engineering and architecture being one of them. And so we have a full complement of sports. So we play football and we just think athletics and athletic competition is very important. So a lot of great things have been happening for us. And people ask me all the time, what's the secret? Why all this success and why now? And our answer is pretty simple. Okay, we really turn to 2 things when people ask us that question. We look at 2 different things. Number one, we embraced our mother, and the second thing we did, we embraced our mission. Okay, so number one, we consecrated the college to the Blessed Virgin Mary. We had made a decision that everything that we did, we're going to put in her hands. And we kind of think if you put the college in her hands, great things are going to happen. This is what happened with us. When we consecrated the college to her, we literally had 1,000 students circle the campus. They prayed a simultaneous rosary. And when the rosary was finished, we gave them each a Pope-blessed miraculous medal that they then buried into the ground. So her graces would surround the entire campus. We have a real devotion to her, as you can imagine, if we're going to embrace our mother and consecrate the college to her. We regularly have what we call memorare armies, people who are willing to pray 1,000 memoraries for a specific cause, and it's helped us with enrollment. It's helped us with different campaign, financial campaign, fundraising campaigns, etc. So a lot of great things are happening because we embraced our mother. The second thing that we did, we embraced our mission. We had made a decision, a while back, that everything that we did, every decision we made is going to be consistent with that mission. And so I'm going to just talk about that mission just very briefly, just so you can kind of get a sense of who we are and what we believe in. Okay, so we have a foundation in our mission. Okay, our mission, our foundation is what we call the 4 pillars. We're a Catholic college, a Benedictine college, a liberal arts college, and a residential college. Okay, Catholic, Benedictine, liberal arts, residential. Those are our foundation. Those are our pillars, and they support our mission, which is to educate our students within a community of faith and scholarship. So this integration of community and faith and scholarship and everything that we do is critical to our success, unique in the marketplace, but most importantly, it's the best way to educate young people. And not only that, but, we tell folks all the time, okay, we tell our young people that we're going to ask them to live the mission of community, faith, and scholarship on our campus while they're at Benedictine, not for us, okay? We ask them to live the mission, so they'll live the mission after they leave. And what do I mean by that? Well, what we want is, when our students graduate, we want them to understand the power of community, that the whole is stronger than its individual parts, okay? Humans are social beings. We need each other to be fully alive. I got to tell you, we probably, I don't have to tell this group, we probably know that better now coming out of the pandemic than we've ever known it, right? Society told us that you can't build community, you can't build friendships, you can't build any relationships, you have to wear a mask, you can't even get within 6 feet of people, right? Okay, and we missed something, haven't we? We're just now starting to see the ramifications of those policies and we're seeing it a lot in college with the mental health issues that we see with young people because of the isolation when they were in high school. And so building community is going to be important. After they leave, we want them to have a close and personal relationship with Jesus Christ, understanding that true happiness comes from doing God's will. Humans have an innate desire to worship. We have an innate desire to worship. And we know that if we don't worship what's true, we don't worship God, well, we'll end up worshiping other things, politics or the internet or social media or popularity or prestige. These things will be in our mind all the time, and we will start worshiping them instead of worshiping what's true. And it'll be just like, Jesus with the woman at the well, right? I can drink this water, but you're going to be thirsty, even if you drink this water now, unless you drink of and worship our God and Jesus, will you never be thirsty again? So this is what we teach our young people. And finally, after they graduate, we want them to be lifelong learners, continually seeking the truth. We're in an era where we're kind of information rich, but analysis poor. Okay, and we're getting bombarded by tons of information. And if we can have a foundation in the liberal arts, then all of a sudden, when we are bombarded with this information, we can pull from the great works ever created by man and analyze all this information, make good decisions, and continually seek the truth. So community, faith, and scholarship. and the reason I went over this on this webinar is because it is really important for this vision that the college has going into the future, and why this Catholic medical school is so important to be at a place like Benedictine College, okay? And that vision is to transform culture in America, okay? We went through a 2-year process where we were looking to have a new strategic plan. We started this in 2018 because the current strategic plan was going to end in 2020. And we had experts from all over the country come in to Atchison, Kansas, and we spent days talking about what kind of a force for good can Benedictine College be, okay? And it became very, very certain that very, very clear that what people are most concerned about was the culture. This is a culture that brings about loneliness and hopelessness and faithlessness and truthlessness and the one thing that most people were concerned about was the culture. So it became very clear that what Benedictine College can do, what we can do, is to form our students in community, faith, and scholarship to transform the culture, to transform culture in America. And the answer is community, faith, and scholarship. In a world of loneliness and polarization, you hear this all the time. Community is the answer, right? We're in an age of hopelessness and incivility. Well, faith is the key, right? And then we're in a no truth era now where we're information rich but analysis poor. Well, scholarship's the foundation. So if we can form our young people in community, faith, and scholarship and send them out, we can truly transform culture in America. So this is what we were doing. Okay, this is the vision that we had, the strategic plan that we had when Catholic Healthcare International, Jere and Dr. George came to Atchison, Kansas to pitch this idea of entering into an affiliation agreement with them to bring a faithful Catholic medical school onto the Benedictine College campus and talk about the ability to transform the culture, especially the culture that is present in healthcare today, okay? there's no better way to transform the culture of healthcare culture today than to have faithful Catholic doctors trained in a faithful Catholic medical school. There's been no more important time ever to have this medical school than right now. And so when they approached us and pitched this, became very, very clear that we had to be a part of this. And it didn't take us long to say yes, because we saw the vision that they presented, and it's a vision that is great for this country and needs to be done. So that's kind of Benedictine College in a nutshell. And I wanted to just kind of introduce you to the college and introduce you to why it is not almost, but it is providential that Catholic Healthcare International came to us and we signed this affiliation agreement. John Paul II says there are no coincidences with God, and there's no coincidence that Catholic Healthcare International, Jere and George, came to Benedictine College because of our mission to educate our students within a community, faith, and scholarship, and this vision to transform the culture. So I don't know if anybody has any questions for me, but I'd be glad to take any questions that you may have about higher education, Catholic higher education, the pressures that are out there, or Benedictine College in particular.
Thank you, President Minnis, for your excellent presentation. Due to an early departure, we will now hold a short Q&A. Sheila Roth, Administrative Assistant and Board Member of ITEST, will pose the questions which have been typed in the chat room. Sheila?
Thank you, Sebastian, and thank you, President Minnis, for your presentation.
Sure.
We have a question here from Dr. Trzynski. He says, I am sure it has been a challenge to remain authentically Catholic in the academic world. How have you been able to build and then maintain that culture? Have you had notable attacks from the government and secular organizations?
That is really a great question. This is getting more and more difficult to be a faithful Catholic, Orthodox, authentically Catholic place. There's no question about it. And there's pressures from all over, okay? I probably say that generally we get pressures from the academy, okay, from other secular schools, but also other Catholic schools that you just don't get it, right? You don't get it by being a faithful Catholic college, but we just think it's the right thing to do. You know, in 1991, I'll just tell you a quick story. In the late 1960s, early 70s, you know, some Catholic administrators got together at Land O'Lakes and came up with the Land O'Lakes document. And basically, this was a document that was written in where it said, you know, we're not, Catholic universities are not getting respected in the academy. And so we're going to put our faith on the shelf, and we're going to concentrate on academic excellence, because you can't be faithfully Catholic and academically excellent. That became the blueprint for Catholic education, higher education in the United States. Probably a blueprint that we at Benedictine probably followed in the late 1960s, early 70s. And, you know, and frankly, that was our high point from an enrollment perspective. And our enrollment then began to plummet all the way to 1991. We had 570 students in 1991 when John Paul II came out with a new encyclical called Excorde Ecclesiae. And in that was a new blueprint for Catholic higher education. And in that document, he said, not only can you be faithfully Catholic and academically excellent, being faithfully Catholic demands that you be academically excellent. So now we had a new blueprint. We could choose between the one created by higher education administrators or one created by the Pope. We chose the Pope, and from that moment on, from 1991 to today, we went from 570 students to over 2,200 full-time undergraduates, and developed a national reputation for having a strong Catholic identity. There is tons of pressure. I got to tell you, 250 Catholic universities in America, there's less than 20 that really embrace Excorde to the point that like we do. So there's not a lot around. I tell parents all the time, do you want your grandkids to be Catholic? Well, then you need to send your kids to Benedictine College or one of the Cardinal Newman schools, because we have a commitment to keeping their faith. 80% of the young people today go to have an active faith, that go to college, have an active faith life, 80%. But by the time they graduate, that number is reduced to 18%, okay? 80 to 18% in a 4-year period of time, people fall away from their faith. Young people fall away from their faith. We will survey our seniors. 90% of our seniors will tell you their faith life increased while they were Benedictine. So we've completely flipped it upside down because we have a desire and an intentionality to keeping the faith alive on our campus. It's critically important. This administration, this government has been very, very, well, generally doesn't like us all that well. Okay. And so, but we believe in this country. We believe in the First Amendment. And so we'll continue to do what we think is the right thing to do, even with all these pressures around us.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I have a question here from Dr. Kevin Powell. How will you handle diversity and inclusiveness on the campus? How will you compare with Belmont University's new medical school in Nashville, whose opening has been pushed back to the fall of 24?
I don't know about their specific thing, but we believe in the gospel message, Jesus's gospel message of love. Our job is we're made in the image and likeness of God, and we believe that, okay? And we see God's children. We don't see different races or ethnic or religions or anything like that. We believe that it's our job and it's our duty as Catholics to love each other. St. Benedict also writes in his rule that every guest should be greeted as if they're Jesus Christ themselves, okay? He writes in his rule, the oldest organizational constitution in the world, still being read by our monks every day at dinner, the sisters every day at lunch. And he writes that every guest, and he defines guest as person, every person should be greeted as if they're Jesus Christ themselves. If we greet every person as Christ, we treat every person as Christ, and we really truly believe in Jesus' gospel message of love, this is how we run our business.
Very good. Thank you. We have a question from Lucinda Mundorf. She says, do you have students with gender dysphoria? And if so, how do you approach this? I have seen this more in my clinical internal medicine practice more in the last year.
I'm trying to think. I don't know of any. We would. I don't know of any right now. We would again. We're going to treat everyone with love, but we do believe that God made us one man, one woman. So I guess that's what I'd say.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Dr. Kathleen Birchelman. She says, will the medical school accept federal funding?
You know, that I don't know the answer to that. When Jere or George come on, George is more well-versed in that than I am. So,
okay, we can ask that later on.
But I would also tell you that there's we have to understand when we say federal funding, I use that as a term of art because the definition of federal funding is very wide, okay? And even student loans are considered federal funding. So our students, I'm assuming that our medical students will take out loans, student loans, which in technical circles would be considered federal funding. But I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Sort of a follow-up question from Dr. Stephen Semut. Given that realistically, if there is government support, the government can ultimately hold you hostage and blackmail you because there will always be requirements that need to be met as a condition. Does Benedictine College accept government funding?
So
you answered partially that.
Yes, we do accept federal funding. Probably, I think it's about $16 to $17 million worth of our funding comes from what would be defined as federal funding, most of which, almost all of it is loans, however. But I think he's right. And this is a concern that we have all the time. We're constantly looking at that. If there's different ways to do this, we've approached different Catholic organizations that might be willing to, how can I say, start their own student loan program so we could get out of our students having to take federal student loans, so they won't have to be impacted by the federal funds. We still believe that this court anyway, it still supports freedom of religion, and right now we can't be forced to do things that are contrary to the church's teachings. But I'm not naive to think that there's not tremendous pressure out there. That there are some forces out there that believe what they would deem discrimination is more important than religious freedom. So I'm very nervous about that myself. That's another thing. One of the things I worry about. I tell people that all the things I worry about. One day, somebody came up to me and said, if you worry, you lack faith. And I said, well, great. Now I've got something else to worry about, right? So I am worried about the protection of the First Amendment. It's critically important moving forward for our school, for the new med school. The first part of the First Amendment is the battleground in the United States moving forward, I think.
Okay, great. Thanks. Can you tell us how the faith life plays such an important role for your students?
Well, when you have a mission to educate within a community of faith and scholarship at the undergraduate level, it's all connected. Okay, and in talking with Dr. George and Jere, that's the way it's going to be in the medical school as well. We just think that it has to be part of your being. Okay, I tell faculty members, I get to interview every faculty member, and I tell them, each one of them, I say, we wouldn't be interviewing if we didn't think you were going to be a good teacher for us. So we know in the classroom that great scholarship is going to happen in that classroom, but it doesn't work for us if you don't allow community and faith in the classroom too, because you as an educator are being hired to educate our students within a community of faith and scholarship. And so if you say you're checking the faith at the door because we're teaching this, then that's just not acceptable. We won't hire you. We won't keep you around if that's the attitude you take. When we renovated our science building, we specifically had the opening to that science building. When you walk into Westerman Hall, there's a raven there with this quote from John Paul II about how faith and reason are like two wings of a bird, reaching for the truth. And so we believe that. And we wanted our students to know, and everybody that teaches at our place to know, that faith and reason and science and faith go together and cannot be separated. So everything that we do is built around community and faith and scholarship. So that's how we do it.
Great. And that reflects our mission to
of course,
faith and science. So, well, I think that wraps up the Q&A for you, President Minnis. And I'm going to send it back to Sebastian, but thank you so much for.
Okay, and I apologize. I'm going to have to get off this webinar. I appreciate being able to take the questions now. We have what we call a send-off in Kansas City today. So that means new students in the Kansas City area, incoming freshmen, are all gathering. So I'm going to go and meet them. I'm very excited about them to move in a couple of weeks. So, yeah.
Great. Well, have a great time.
Great. Hey, thanks, everybody. Appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for moderating that session. And thank you, President Minnis, for joining us today for this webinar. And now I'm pleased to introduce our second presenter. Jere Palazzolo has over 40 years of experience in executive leadership and the delivery of healthcare services. He received a Master of Healthcare Administration, MHA, from Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Mr. Palazzolo has presented at national and local forums and has published several articles on current issues and trends in the delivery of healthcare services. Inspired by the work and charism of St. Padre Pio of Pietrelcina, Mr. Palazzolo founded the nonprofit apostolate Catholic Healthcare International. On October 1st, 2009, this apostolate signed a formal collaboration agreement with Padre Pio's hospital in Italy, the Vatican-owned Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, in English, the Home for the Relief of Suffering, for the expressed purpose of duplicating Padre Pio's Casa as a model of truly faithful Catholic healthcare delivery in the United States and other areas around the world. Catholic Healthcare International is now pursuing the active implementation of its comprehensive Casa USA three-pillar program in the Diocese of Lansing, Michigan, under the Episcopal leadership of Most Reverend Earl Boya, Bishop of Lansing, and that includes a faithful Catholic medical school on the campus of Benedictine College in Atchison, Kansas. Mr. Palazzolo's presentation is entitled Catholic Healthcare International, the Casa Sollievo della Sofferenza, and the Charism of St. Padre Pio. Mr. Palazzolo, take it away.
Thank you, Sebastian. And it is an honor to be here with everyone this morning and to share our calling, our vision, and the work that we're doing. And it's also an honor to be sandwiched in between President Minnis and Dr. Mychaskiw, who are, obviously you can see why Benedictine, after you heard President Minnis, why they are the perfect home for us to be immersed in a fully faithful Catholic culture for our students, to be formed as the healing ministers of Jesus Christ and his church here on earth. And that's why I very fondly refer to our medical school really as a seminary for these healing ministers. And that's really what it is. It's the formation of these people to go out into a culture of death and to minister and be the hands of Christ, as President Minnis talked about, in the suffering people, the suffering Jesus in the world. So it's an honor to be here. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Padre Pio. Many of you probably know some about him. You may or may not know that he developed a hospital called the Home for the Relief of Suffering, which is what really drew me to him, a really unique model of healthcare. And he considered that his most important work on earth of all the miracles he performed, which is very interesting. I'll tell you a bit about the culture of healthcare and Catholic healthcare in the United States, and frankly, the secularization of that. Then I'll talk about our calling and then our response, and also then about God's faithfulness in always helping you and sending the right people and sending the resources when you are willing to say yes to his call. I have some slides and a video to guide me along the way here that I think you will find very interesting and helpful. And I think a good introduction to this will be a video that EWTN did on us, our calling, and our collaboration with Padre Pio's Casa in Italy. We were over in Italy a few years ago, and we went to their Rome bureau, and they recorded and then produced this segment for their television program called Vaticano. You may be familiar with this. And this is a brief video, and I want to share it with you because I think you'll get to see live pictures or moving pictures of Padre Pio, and you'll understand, it'll give you a background as to what we're doing and an understanding of what they've got going over there. So let me play this for you. I will tell you the audio on this is sometimes low, so you may want to turn up your audio on your speakers or your computer. All right, so I'll let this play.
On January the 9th, 1940, Padre Pio announced his plans to develop a healthcare project named Home for the Relief of Suffering. This project was fully realized, opening in 1956. and from that time onwards, it has continued to provide medical and spiritual care for thousands of patients. The Home for the Relief of Suffering is not only a modern-day hospital and medical research center, but also a new healthcare conception where evangelical values are implemented on a daily basis. This big campus constitutes part of that shrine of Padre Pio and is situated in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy, 4 hours southeast of Rome. Jere Palazzolo's dream is to enrich the worldwide Catholic healthcare system with the vision of Padre Pio. To do so, Jere founded a non-profit apostolate called Catholic Healthcare International in 2004.
We plan on developing a campus called the Casa USA campus in the United States in the charism of Padre Pio as he developed his Casa Sieva della Sofferenza in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy. On our campus will include a replica of a hospital built in that charism, the same values, the same spirit. We'll also develop a pilgrim shrine because there are thousands of Padre Pio prayer groups around the world that will come and pray with us and support what it is that we're doing. We'll develop a fully faithful Catholic medical school called the School for the Relief of Suffering, again, forming Catholic physicians to practice in the charism for the relief of suffering in a very secular world, and then a network of physician practices, fully faithful, fully Catholic in their delivery of health care.
Catholic Healthcare International signed a formal collaboration agreement with the Home for the Relief of Suffering on October the 1st, 2009, gaining permission to duplicate their model around the world.
Cardinal Burke has been our friend, our Episcopal advisor through the whole thing from the very beginning.
Of course, I immediately understood his vision because I had been a diocesan bishop for some 14 years, and I knew what had happened to Catholic healthcare and how desperately it needed to be restored to its origins as truly Christ-like care of the sick from the moment of conception to the moment of natural death.
The first facility that will go up on the campus will be the Pilgrim Shrine, because Padre Pio said the success of the Casa when he built it, as we are following the same way, has to be built upon the foundation of prayer from people around the world. And we've already got those people praying for us, but we want to have them come with us. And it's prayer, and in our case, Eucharistic adoration, because it's been my experience, it's been Cardinal Burke's experience, and I think every faithful Catholic has seen the fundamental impact that Eucharistic adoration has on the way people's faith and the way Catholicism is practiced, and the delivery of Catholic healthcare. We can't go wrong if we're built upon Eucharistic adoration.
The Church has this great gift to offer, a gift that Christ first gave in his care for the sick, but which has continued on through the history of the Church in Catholic hospitals, with these wonderful congregations of religious women and men who devoted themselves to the care of the sick. And now we need to reappropriate that, to reinsert ourselves in the living tradition of Catholic health care. And I really believe it will happen. It's a tremendous work. It will involve tremendous sacrifices, but it's absolutely needed. We can't do otherwise.
A part of the Concrete Healthcare Project in the state of Michigan and an educational program, Healthcare International has engaged in a campaign to establish formal Eucharistic adoration programs in the chapels of Catholic hospitals around the world. Jere says that in order to provide healthcare, it's important to see the suffering of Jesus in every patient. Maybe the mystery of suffering will never be understood, but we need to realize that suffering does have great value. This is why it's important for Catholic hospitals to place Jesus at the center of their healthcare activities.
Well, I hope you found that interesting, and it's always interesting to be able to put things into context, to see the place, to see and hear the patron, Padre Pio, and the work that he actually did, and then to hear from Cardinal Burke, his feelings. He was with us right from the very beginning in this calling. And honestly, it was he was the one who had us expand our vision from extending the CASA hospital to the United States to also the need for a fully faithful Catholic medical school, because he saw the secularization of Catholic healthcare as it was going about. So Padre Pio, some of you know about him. His, I think his most well-known thing is that he had the stigmata, the wounds of Christ on his hands, his feet, and his side. He was an incredible miracle worker. He spent hours in the confessional and read people's hearts and minds. And he's still very, very active in people's lives today and in the work that we're doing. He developed this home for the relief of suffering, the Casa Ciudad Sufferenza, as a clinic for the body and the soul. And he saw the need for the focus on suffering and the theology of suffering and its implications. It has so many implications, salvific, redemptive. And he always said that love is the first ingredient to the relief of suffering. And so, as Steve was saying, in the Benedictine tradition, everyone is a guest, everyone is viewed as Jesus. Padre Pio saw the same. He saw the twice Jesus, the suffering and wretched Jesus, as he would say, in each patient that would come in. And he would advise his staff, his physicians, and even all of the housekeeping and the dietitians, be the hands of Jesus in serving the suffering and wretched Jesus. And that's what makes the difference over there. When you go over and you see it, there really is a difference because of the focus they have on that. It is a Vatican-owned hospital. It was interesting. The church made an exception for him, that he was actually the owner of the hospital until he died, but he then turned it over in his last will to the Vatican. So it is the president of the CASA, reports directly to the Secretary of State of the Vatican. And it's a very unique model of Catholic healthcare delivery. And it's just assumed, as we will, that it has the best of technology and the highest quality, but it takes that to the next level with its adherence to the Catholic precepts and teachings. And the healing ministry of the church is its deepest and most longest lasting tradition from the time of Christ. And it is so important to continue on that. So Padre Pio, and this is very important also, always saw prayer as the foundation of the work. And before he even did anything in the planning and development of the CASA hospital over there, he came up with this idea and announced it, that he was going to do this hospital in 1940. The hospital wasn't opened up until 1956. First, he developed this worldwide network of Padre Pio prayer groups, and you may be familiar with those. There's now almost over 3,400 of those around the world, 65 countries, and we have 125 of them here. And we've actually developed some in our area. And on my board is the head, Father Francis Ariejo, in Wilmington, Delaware. He's the head of the Padre Pio prayer groups in the United States. He's on my board, and they support us in all that we do, the work we do. This is a young Padre Pio with his stigmata. This is the San Giovanni Rotondo, the monastery, when Padre Pio arrived in 1916. And, remember this little church up here, because you'll see it later on in our plans for what we're going to be doing. This is the hospital in 1956 when it was first inaugurated. It was 300 beds at that time. This is the inaugural Mass with Padre Pio saying it out on the courtyard in front of the hospital. This is, again, a couple years later. And this is it today. It has grown up. It's 1,000 beds now. The community has grown from 3,000 people to about 40,000 people. And it's an international referral center. It has all the latest services, research, amazing things being done over there, all by the grace of God and the providence of God from one man who responded to a calling and said, you know, this place needs healthcare, and I'm going to build my model of healthcare here. He said that, and this was important for him, if this home, which is what he called the casa, it's a home for, and he had the family and the guests that came as patients. If it was just a solace for the bodies, it would only amount to a model clinic built by the means of your extraordinarily generous charity. That's good. That's great. That's important. But more than that, it's pushed to be an active reminder of the love of God through the call for charity. Again, love is the first ingredient to the relief of suffering. Always, always. Our vision, the calling, I moved on an inspiration from Padre Pio. As a hospital administrator, I saw the secularization of Catholic healthcare. And I read this vision and had an inspiration at the same time. And it was a quote by Dr. Sanguinetti, who Padre Pio called to build his hospital. And interestingly enough, Dr. Sanguinetti didn't live in San Giovanni. He didn't have a devotion to Padre Pio, or he was, frankly, he was an atheist. His wife had a strong devotion, and she forced him to come along. And one day, Padre Pio went up to him and he said, "You're going to build this hospital for me." And he goes, "I can't do that. I don't know anything about building hospitals. And I have a home back in Bologna, and I have lots of debts and everything." And he goes, "Don't worry about it. You're going to come. You're going to do this for me. And God's going to take care of your debts so that you can." And he goes, "Well, I don't even believe in God." And he goes, "Don't worry. God believes in you." So this is what Dr. Sanguinetti said. And it was quoted 5 years before they opened the hospital. It's the Casa Ciudad Sufferenza, the home for the relief of suffering, should therefore be the first link in a great chain. It should be the model for many other innumerable casas with the same name and above all the same spirit, which must bring love to all of humanity, a program which would make us tremble with awe if it was not inspired by God, who is above all love. That was the inspiration, or what I was reading when I got the inspiration. It was clear to me that I was being called to pursue this. So I went over to San Giovanni Rotondo, I pursued it, and the rest is history. It all fell into place. They agreed, and we moved forward. Here's kind of a little summary of, in 1950, that was the stated vision. Dr. Sanguinetti, the hospital opened up in 56. We incorporated in 2004. My inspiration was around the year 2000. And we signed a formal collaboration agreement with the Casa over in Italy in 2009 to replicate. We're the only entity in the world that has the blessing of the Casa over in Italy to replicate its model and vision of Catholic healthcare in the model of the charism of Padre Pio, the home for the relief of suffering. Now, what was kind of the precipitating reason for all of this is the crisis in Catholic healthcare delivery, which quite frankly started almost right when I graduated from my graduate program in hospital administration, went out. I went into a very, very wonderful congregationally run Catholic system, run by the sisters, very well run. But then at that very same time, about 40 years ago, the country went through a transition in the reimbursement of Catholic health, of healthcare in general. And basically it cut the funding significantly to the point where all of the systems were very concerned about finances. And the mantra, even in Catholic healthcare systems, became no margin, no mission. If we can't make money, we can't pursue our mission, which is exactly backwards. Most systems got started because they followed the calling, and God provided, providence provided for him. And that's the way it should always be. So it was very frustrating for a young hospital administrator to come out into that kind of world and then to see it continuing on and on and on. But I knew that there was a way to get back to our roots in that. But to tell you the level that it went to, and I don't know how much, most people are not aware of this, but the secularization of Catholic healthcare, really, the thing that catapulted that was the Catholic healthcare system in the United States and some of the religious orders. If you remember correctly, the bishops were against Obamacare because it embedded into it, even though it was to try to take care of the poor and the needy, it embedded within it many, many things that would be not consistent with, the Catholic teachings, ways to fund abortion, contraception, all different types of things that were not consistent. And Obamacare actually was about to fail. There was a group that was holding out. And at the 11th hour, the Catholic Health Association, an association of about 600 Catholic hospitals, gave their endorsement to Obamacare. And at the same time, the Leadership Conference of Religious Women religious, did the same thing. 59,000 religious women sent a letter to Pelosi and Reid and Obama saying that they endorsed it. And that put it over the top. So it is a great scandal, unfortunately, in the way that Catholic healthcare supported that. So that's what. So what do we need? We need a renewal in Catholic healthcare delivery. I want to go over just really quickly because Cardinal Burke, our Episcopal advisor from the beginning, at a retreat we had a few years back, we asked him to speak about how to deliver Catholic healthcare in a secular world. And he came up and presented what he called 7 elements that would guide should guide Catholic healthcare delivery in our country, in the secular world. And I just want to go over them very quickly with you because they're so profound, yet so simple, and you would think matter of fact, but it's not the way it actually works, unfortunately, in the Catholic healthcare system in our country, and it's what we need to get back to. First of all, he said, you have to have an understanding of what it means to be Catholic. How can you deliver Catholic healthcare if you don't understand what it means to be Catholic? And of the importance of providing healthcare in accord with the teaching, worship, and governance of the Catholic Church. So you need to understand the Church if you're going to really go out and be part of this mission that it's doing. You need to have a knowledge of the commitment to a distinct form of healthcare, namely the care of the sick and the dying in the Church, as an integral part of the Church's mission under the direction of the diocesan bishop and ultimately the Roman pontiff. Again, every Catholic hospital reports to the local bishop. It is there to care for the sick and the dying. Jesus Christ healing ministry in the Church from his time and ultimately to the Pope. And I will tell you that most Catholic hospitals in our country do not have a strong relationship and operate under the direction strongly of their local bishop, which again is a shame. You have to have a personal commitment of the administration and staff, the leadership of the hospital and the staff of the Catholic Healthcare Institution to the Church's teaching to carrying out the care of the sick and the dying after the mind of Christ alive for us in the Church. And that's where I think the Casa over in Italy really hits it very well. The home for the relief of suffering, care for the sick and dying Jesus. Fourthly, a Catholic understanding of man, which inspires the care of the whole person. You got to see the physical and the emotional difficulties of the person within the context of the moral and spiritual life. You can't look at a body, catalog it as Padre Pio would say, you don't catalog patients as a diagnosis. You look at the body, the soul, the moral, the spiritual life of that person, the whole person. Fifthly, the priority of ethical and religious standards over the professional standing and position in the larger medical community. So we have ethical and religious directives of the Catholic healthcare services that are produced by the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops. And that's got to be the binding norm for the way healthcare is delivered in Catholic hospitals. You got to have freedom from financial support and assistance, which is given under conditions which obscure or even betray the Catholic identity of Catholic healthcare institution. And this is really important because money is tight and it's difficult to run these huge systems. And the temptation is to go out and take funds that come with strings attached. And that can't be the case in Catholic healthcare. And then you have to have discipline from the desire for the credibility or prestige, which would lead Catholic institutions into relationships with large non-Catholic healthcare institutions by way of mergers, partnerships, and joint ventures. And that has been huge over the past several years within Catholic health, the merger with non-Catholic systems, and frankly, the forfeiting of Catholic identity from being a congregationally run to being corporately run, which is the transition that most Catholic hospitals went through. So I wanted to go through that quickly, and I can provide this to anyone who may want it, but it was very profound by Cardinal Burke, and it really does sum up how Catholic healthcare should be delivered in our country. What have we done in response? We have a three-pillar program model built on Eucharistic adoration and prayer, first of all, and then loyalty to the magisterium of the church. Those are two key. And Padre Pio said, even when he was being persecuted by the Vatican and not allowed to public ministry in that, he always stayed loyal to the magisterium of the church. And the foundation of prayer was absolutely critical. We are developing the hospital, the Home for the Relief of Suffering, the Faithful Catholic Medical School, and then a Catholic Physician Practice Network. And that these are our participating ministries and apostolates. You see Cardinal Burke, Bishop Boyer, you see Catholic Healthcare International, the CASA, you see Terry Scheibel Life and Hope Network. Bobby Schindler, Terry Scheibel's brother, is part of our team, and we will develop a unit to care for patients like Terry. We have a Christ Medicus Foundation that is working with us in public policy and delivery of physician practice models, and then the medical school, the Home for, or the Institute for the Relief of Suffering School of Osteopathic Medicine at Benedictine College. These are the programs that we're working on. First and foremost is the foundation of prayer, absolutely critical. Once we got this put into place, everything really started taking off. What is that? First of all, an international perpetual Eucharistic adoration program, the only one in the world. We have people from around the world signed up to pray for what the work we're doing in front of the Eucharist in their communities every hour of the day of the week, over 300 hours per week praying for what we're doing. That is powerful, powerful. We have regional Padre Pio prayer groups that we've developed in Michigan that are praying for us. And then we have our prayer campus, which I'll show you some pictures of, where we have people coming and praying with us and praying for us. We're going to develop the Home for the Relief of Suffering Hospital, and that is coming along. It also, and probably within the next few years, you'll see that become a reality. The medical school you're hearing a lot about today, the Terry Scheibel Home for the Brain Injured, to take care of those patients that other people don't see usefulness and utility for. They are children of God, and we have to care for them, even though they are very expensive. A foundation center for public policy and a physician clinic network. This is just a few pictures of our prayer campus, because we had built this prayer campus. The diocese in Lansing gave us 40 acres, and on it we are developing. We had put together 4 prayer trails. The Stations of the Cross, a memorare trail, a trail with statues of medical saints, and then a trail which Bishop Boyer came up with the theme for, and it's called God Right Straight with Crooked Lines. And it's a very inspirational trail because it gives the life stories of 11 saints who were wayward saints, who had great difficulties, who had great addictions, who even a Satanist, who God pulled out of the world, called, and turned into great saints. And, it's to show the rest of us, there is hope for us, even when we get discouraged in what we're doing. This is Bishop Boyer, a mass that we had out on our prayer campus. That's our Santa Maria della Grazia mural wall, which is a replica of the mural behind the altar of the main church over in San Giovanni Rotondo, Italy. This is a life-size statue of a young Padre Pio in the setting on his farm, his family farm, where he received the invisible stigmata. And our Stations of the Cross, and this was Cardinal Burke doing a Eucharistic procession through our campus for us. We are having, this is an artist from Cincinnati. His name is Joe Chauvin, and he is one by one, we've now got 4 of them, I believe, painting original stations of the cross that incorporate Padre Pio sharing in the Passion of Christ on his journey to Calvary. They're beautiful and they're very inspirational and unique. A life-size set of the Our Lady of Fatima coming out of our Memorare Trail. And these are some of the statues. These are original statues that Joe Chauvin has designed for us. This is Mother Teresa, Saint Maria, Saint Marianne, I'm sorry, and Saint Damien of Malachi, Saint Martin de Tours, Saint Gianna. Those are among the, I believe, 10 or 11 that we're going to do actual carvings, original carvings, marble statues. And these are some of the stories of some of the saints on the God Writes Straight with Crooked Lines. Saint Monica, the companion of long-suffering and wayward families. Saint Augustine, the companion of addiction and restlessness. And then the final one where you go and it shows all of the saints that have struggled through their lives and become great saints. And then it says, what is God calling for you? This is, as you saw the picture, this is the original monastery chapel over in San Giovanni Rotondo. When Padre Pio arrived, we are going to replicate this as our Eucharistic Adoration Chapel on our prayer campus. And this up here is the choir loft, and that's the actual crucifix that Padre Pio was praying in front of, which, and from which the lights emanated, in which he received the visible stigmata. And that, so we're going to replicate all of that. This was a neat picture of us at the EWTN Rome Bureau when we went over there for our retreat. And this is what Padre Pio said, a quote from him. I'll close out with this. When he brought 4 or 5 people together in his cell in 1940, when he told them, I have this grand plan to develop this home for the relief of suffering, and they all talked about it and agreed that they were going to do this. And then he closed out by saying, this evening, my earthly work has begun. I bless you and all those that will contribute to the work, which will become bigger and more beautiful. Well, that was his prophecy of it becoming bigger and more beautiful, which is what we're doing in extending his charism into the United States, and also doing that now through the work of the medical school that we're talking about here today. So that, I think I'm right on time. I hope I'm right on time. And that concludes my portion of it. I hope you found it interesting. And it's an honor, and I appreciate the opportunity to present it to you.
Thank you, Mr. Palazzolo, for your excellent presentation. And now I'm pleased to introduce our third presenter. Dr. George Mychaskiw is Director of Perioperative Services, Professor and Vice Chair of Anesthesiology at the Ochsner LSU Health Science Center in Shreveport, Louisiana. He received his medical degree from the Kansas City University College of Osteopathic Medicine. Dr. Mychaskiw completed fellowships in cardiac and pediatric anesthesiology at the Yale University School of Medicine, Yale New Haven Hospital, and was appointed as an assistant professor of anesthesiology in the cardiac and pediatric divisions at the Yale New Haven Hospital. He has also received training in hyperbaric medicine at the University of Texas in Galveston. Dr. Mychaskiw is certified by the American Board of Anesthesiology, the American Osteopathic Board of Anesthesiology, and has been certified by the National Board of Echocardiography. He is the author of numerous articles and book chapters and has been a visiting professor at many institutions in the US, Canada, China, India, the Philippines, and Saudi Arabia. His new book, Follow the Science, A Catholic Physician's Contemplations on Faith, Medicine, and the Catholic Church, will be published soon by En route Books and Media. An authority in osteopathic medical education, Dr. Mychaskiw has been involved in the development of 4 osteopathic medical colleges in the U.S., including the Burrell College of Osteopathic Medicine at New Mexico State University, where he served as founding dean and chief academic officer. Dr. Mychaskiw joined Salud Education to continue development of medical colleges to meet the healthcare needs of the country's underserved and vulnerable populations. Dr. Mychaskiw's presentation is entitled Creating a New Medical School in Paradigm of Health Professions Education. Dr. Mychaskiw, take it away.
Padre Pio believed the commitment of science to treating the sick must never be separated from faith in God. But that is exactly where our healthcare industry is heading. In a time of fear and confusion, in a culture of death and temporal self-interest, now more than ever, the world is in need of physicians who will, like Jesus Christ, be peaceful warriors, who will stand for the life and dignity of every human being, who will oppose the lies of gender ideology, what Pope Francis calls a global war against the family. The world is in need of doctors who are steadfast in and armored with faithful Catholic truth. Those who understand and are confident in their practice of healing. The world is in need of a medical school that understands the role of faith and morality in the sciences. A medical school that will train and educate physicians to set the world afire. The proposed St. Padre Pio Institute for the Relief of Suffering, School of Osteopathic Medicine at Benedictine College.
So you see our mission statement, that we educate osteopathic physicians through a Catholic framework to treat the sick and relieve suffering and thereby evangelize the good news of Jesus Christ. President Minnis talked a lot about Ex Corde Ecclesiae, and this will be the only medical school in the world that is adherent to and under the magisterium of the Catholic Church under Ex Corde Ecclesiae. That's very important. In the United States right now, there are 9 Catholic medical schools, osteopathic schools, and 7 MD allopathic schools, and they're all sort of nominally Catholic. Some go out of their way to say, well, we're a medical school. We're not really a Catholic school. And medicine is different than Catholicism. And we think they could not be more wrong. We think medicine, Catholicism, and faith all go hand in hand. But why are we doing this? Well, American culture is in decline. Who would have thought even a few years ago that the joy and the appetite for destruction and abortion would be the way it is right now? The madness of gender fluidity, euthanasia, and secular humanism are celebrated. And a lot of this, in fact, all of it has been brought to you by medicine and physicians. The genocide of 65 million children could not have been accomplished without the ready, willing, and able participation of physicians. The mutilation of children and adolescents pursuing gender ideology could not have been accomplished without the ready, willing, and able participation of physicians. Physicians have delivered us this culture of death, and this continues today. And we need a medical school to stand for science, to stand for life, to stand for men and women as created in the image and likeness of God. And faithful Catholic physicians have no support. We always hear stories of physicians and other healthcare professionals forced to either compromise their conscience or leave their job or losing jobs because they can't violate their conscience. Medical students can't find acceptable training opportunities. We hear daily from potential students who have not even considered going to medicine. They said, well, I want a position, but I'm afraid of being compelled to do things that are contrary to my faith and my ethics. And then patients who look for Catholic ethical physicians can't find support. It's interesting. We have this culture of prenatal testing for fetal anomalies and genetic conditions. And you'll have a patient coming who's maybe a little bit older, and the first thing the obstetrician will say is, well, we can get an amniocentesis scheduled. And when that question was posed to me and my wife, our response was, well, why would we do that? And the obstetrician couldn't understand. We said, well, no matter what you're going to find, we're not going to change what our plan with the pregnancy is. We're not going to terminate this pregnancy. And to the obstetrician, it was like explaining oxygen to somebody who grew up on the moon. They just don't consider this in medical school. And the ultimate example of this is the country of Iceland. Iceland very proudly says that they have eliminated Down syndrome in Iceland. There's only 1 or 2 people a year in Iceland now born with Down syndrome. And is it something in the Nordic climate or the water? It's not. Iceland has exterminated every unborn child with Down syndrome. I mean, it was a lot like the same way the Nazis eliminated Jews in Poland in 1943. It was not, it was just a campaign of mass extermination. So we are developing this nation's first truly faithful Catholic medical school, a school that believes a person is a unity of a mind, a body, and a spirit. And one aspect cannot be treated without affecting every other aspect. We stand for and value human life, all human life being equally worthy from conception to natural death without qualification. The disabled, the sick, the suffering, all have equal worth in the eyes of God. And a school that we'll call abortion and euthanasia the murder that they are. And this, again, sort of the quotes from the video, that we are training physicians that are armored with faithful Catholic truth to go out and practice healing, to spread the good news of Jesus Christ, and to set the world afire, as St. Luke said. A lot of people don't realize, we talk a lot about in vitro fertilization and assisted reproductive technologies, but it's just not well known that hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of children are simply killed in those processes. So what happens? Somebody goes for in vitro fertilization. They create multiple embryos, 2, 3, 10, 20 embryos. They pick the one they want. They genetically select for the traits they want, and the others are frozen in liquid nitrogen or simply discarded, eliminated, killed. Again, these are human lives. I mean, you see a lot of euphemisms used on the pro-abortion side or the pro-choice side, as they euphemistically call themselves. And they'll call them fetuses, embryos, zygotes, things like that. But at its essence, it's undeniably a human life. And millions of these children are killed for the vanity of in vitro fertilization. You know, children are not entitlements. Children are gifts from God. A school that teaches the students the mechanisms of actions of birth control, and to understand that many oral contraceptives are actually abortifacients. So abortions are being chemically induced. Okay, maybe it's a day or two after fertilization, but again, this is a human life created in the image and likeness of God that's being killed. A school that understands that there are two genders. We see a great injustice being done to people suffering from gender dysphoria, and that has largely, again, been brought to us by medicine. These individuals deserve compassion, love, and care, but treating them as we do now by supporting and affirming their gender ideology is very similar to offering liposuction to somebody with anorexia. It may feel good for a short time, but eventually the mental illness underlying this is not treated. In fact, it's exacerbated. We know that even in societies that fully accept transgenderism, such as the Nordic countries, the rate of suicide in people that have undergone gender transition is 19 times the general population. And we see now in Europe and the United Kingdom them moving away from early gender transition because, indeed, these people are suffering poor health outcomes. And we'll be doing research in collaboration and cooperation with the CASA in Italy in things like what they do, bioethical drug development, stem cell technology, things like that. We intend to have a vigorous program of bioethics and medical theology. All the students will enjoy this curriculum and also have a spiritual home, a spiritual direction program. So the graduates will be formed as faithful physicians. We anticipate that every student will graduate with a medical degree and a master's degree in bioethics and medical theology. So again, our job is to care for the sick and suffering, and also to be a resource for our patients, for Catholic and other patients, and again, to evangelize the good news of Jesus Christ through the practice of these physicians. Jesus Christ is the divine healer, and physicians walk in his footsteps. Medical schools need to teach the truth, and often they don't. Often they teach what's popular rather than that's true. And we intend to teach the truth in a faithful Catholic framework. This will be located on the campus of Benedictine College. It will be an independent institution. So it is separately licensed, financed, governed, and accredited, but it will live on the Benedictine campus. So it's not part of Benedictine College, but it works closely and is affiliated with Benedictine College. So at its simplest, it's a lot like a Subway sandwich shop that lives on a college campus, but really it's a lot closer than that. We're there for the spiritual life of the students, for this to be a spiritual home for the students, and for our students to participate in the student life with Benedictine College, to work on research with Benedictine and faculty exchange. And we'll have facilitated admissions pathways. So for instance, a student at Benedictine, if they meet our admissions criteria, could have a direct admission to the medical school. Right now, nationwide, there's about 4 well-qualified applicants for every medical school space in the United States, which means 3 people simply don't go to medical school. And we have a tremendous physician shortage, which is only getting worse. So this takes some of that variability out. We'll have that sort of relationship with Benedictine, other Newman List colleges, and certain colleges around the United States, like, say, Hillsdale College. So the students will go to school for 2 years on the Benedictine campus facility, where they take the basic courses, anatomy, physiology, biochemistry. And then for the last 2 years of their education, we're developing a national Christian clinical network. So they'll go to hospitals, clinics, and with faithful Catholic and other physicians around the U.S. to actually learn their clinical skills, working with patients. They will continue to receive the coursework in bioethics, and we'll have these joint degree programs. I've already talked about the preferential consideration for admission for these students. So we have a team of very experienced professionals. I've started several medical schools. I have a consulting group that has a record of success in higher education, and we'll do this over the next several years. Medical schools are very complicated. They're very highly regulated to ensure a high standard of quality and consumer protection. So there's a lot of work that goes into this. We're going to construct a new 100,000 square foot building on the Benedictine campus. And it won't look like that building in this picture here, but that's a very typical medical school building. It'll be similar on the inside. On the outside, obviously, we want our architecture to match the architecture of Benedictine College, and their architectural school will be working with us to design that external facade. And we've talked about the demand for medical education is very high. So we would expect somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 applications per year for our 150 available spaces. And over time, we'll develop other professional programs such as dentistry, physician assistant, nurse anesthesia, physical therapy, other professional medical programs, again, in a faithful Catholic framework. And we're trying to do this as aggressively and quickly as possible. We know that abortions continue in the U.S. even after the Dobbs decision. We see the bloodlust with which other states have turned to a pro-abortion agenda. Assisted suicide is getting greater acceptance every day. Canada may be a bellwether of what's to come in the U.S., where assisted suicide is being touted for things as simple as depression and just being poor. People are seen increasingly as inconvenient, and we want to stop this. And again, we've talked about all the issues with gender ideology. So we're working aggressively, and good Lord willing, and we meet all the accreditation standards. We hope to open in the fall of 2027. And obviously, this is part of a fundraising campaign where we're actively in the market right now, looking for funds. We hope to have our founding dean in place in April of next year, and again, continue to work aggressively on the medical school to get the job done. As Jerry said, everything we do is on a foundation of prayer. And we know that with the intercession of St. Padre Pio, our mother, and all the angels and saints, that we will succeed in time of the Holy Spirit. So thank you. Again, very thrilled, very honored to be here, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Mychaskiw, for your excellent presentation. And now we will entertain questions from our participants for Jere Palazzolo and Dr. George Mychaskiw. Our question moderator is again Sheila Roth. Sheila?
Thank you, everyone, for your great presentations. We're going to go back to the question from Dr. Birchelman. She asked this question of President Minnis, and he didn't have the answer, but I'll ask you, will the medical school accept federal funding?
Well, we will for now. So we intend to be qualified for federal funding for Title IV loans for the medical students and potentially for federal support of research. However, if the federal government places limitations or conditions on such funding that would violate our conscience and Catholic principles, then we're ready to forego that funding. Medical schools and medical students are seen by the market as a very good risk for loans. They have the lowest attrition rate and the lowest default rate in the industry. So it's very easy for medical students to get private loans in the market, sometimes at rates more favorable than the federal. So in the event that onerous requirements are imposed on us, we're ready to forego federal funding. But for now, we're planning for that to be available. And for now, the federal government has respected the conscience rights of faith-based schools.
All right, thank you. Dr. Stephen Samut has asked a question. What safeguards are being sought to ensure for as long as possible the good intentions of Catholic Healthcare International and the foundations of this medical school?
Thank you, Steve. A lot of this is built into the affiliation agreement. We have a contractual agreement with Benedictine because we all agree on this right now. But of course, this is intended to be a project that will outlive us into the distant future. So the Catholicism of the school is built into the affiliation agreement, the requirements for how the school is governed, for its leadership to be Catholic, for the executive leadership and the board to be Catholic and to adhere to ex corde ecclesiae. So that is all in contracts, and both parties, have to agree. So we couldn't, for instance, take a bunch of funding from Planned Parenthood without the consent of Benedictine College, and vice versa. Benedictine College couldn't start creating programs without our consent that would be detrimental to the medical school. But we do have that memorialized by the lawyers.
All right, thank you. Another question, Dr. Lucinda Mundorf asks, this topic of gender dysphoria is quite a stressor for me as I learn to develop a healing approach to the patients who are in this distress. Do you have any resources you could recommend for this?
Well, I would defer to more experts on this, Catholic psychiatrists. It's interesting, in DSM-4, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, up until 2013, gender dysphoria was called gender identity disorder, and it was considered to be a psychiatric illness to be treated like any other medical condition. After 2013, DSM was revised to DSM-5 when it was changed to be gender dysphoria, and that was considered to be a normal condition. So it was considered to be a normal condition of a mind trapped in the wrong body, and the treatment then became accommodating the body to meet this new mind. And just on its surface, that seems pretty preposterous, that a body that's functioning normally with normal hormonal functions consistent with its sex somehow has an abnormal mind in it. And you would think that scientists and physicians would have a very good scientific basis for making this change. And when you look at the literature behind why this was done because of lobbying from gender advocacy groups and opinion polling. There was no scientific basis for that. We know that the best and most effective treatment for gender identity disorder in children and adolescents is watchful waiting. And that was what was done previously. And now we see this big explosion in gender dysphoria with gender affirmation. And, there's nothing new in the water. It's not a virus that's being carried, but there is a lot of popularity of this in social media. And sometimes it's better to be in the Lord of the Flies world. It's a high school. Maybe it's better to be the transgender kid than it's better to be the geek that sits with the geeks at the geek table. So it's just this crazy explosion that is not explainable by any other rational and logical reason.
I would add just to that, obviously, we're going to be a big center and focus for this as we develop. And Dr. George has written a blog. He has, I believe, like 35 different publications on that, and he's having it published into a book. It's on our website about many of these issues. But you're probably also familiar with the National Catholic Bioethics Center up in Philadelphia, and they're a great resource also, and we're working with them too. But they're available for physicians and hospitals and people to call when they're running into issues that they don't know how to deal with. So you might take that on as a resource also.
Okay, thank you for the resources. A question from Dr. Giuliano. Will the school require both Middle States and LCME accreditation?
The school will be accredited by the Commission on Osteopathic College Accreditation, which is the U.S. Department of Education's designated body for accreditation of osteopathic schools. So it's the LCME equivalent, abbreviated the COCA. The COCA is the institutional accreditor for the school, as well as the programmatic accreditor, so it will function equivalent to the Middle States as far as Title IV gatekeeping, but the school will eventually seek its own, what used to be called regional accreditation, probably through Middle States, although the traditional regional accreditors now accredit all across the country. So that has sort of gone away. But Benedictine is Middle States and will probably seek Middle States as well, but that will take several years.
Dr. Birchelman also asked, why did you choose to be an osteopathic school versus allopathic?
Well, osteopathic philosophy really fits with what we're doing. Osteopathic mind, body, and spirit integration. Osteopathic medicine has always considered the spirit and spirituality and faith as an essential component of a person. And another thing that we do, osteopathic schools really work hard to train physicians to go out into the community and practice medicine, because that's our goal. Our goal is not really to do research to reinvent DNA and have large amounts of federal research funding. Now, MD medical schools, they do very similar things, right? And the physicians are almost indistinguishable, but their missions are different. When you think about it, MD medical schools train physicians as a side effect of what they do, because MD medical schools are really designed to do research and to run large clinical operations like quaternary care university medical centers. So Michigan State is a perfect example. Michigan State University has both an MD and a DO school, and Michigan State on the MD school side does a lot of research. They get grants and they do interesting things. And on the DO school side, they put a primary care physician into every county in Michigan. So it fits our philosophy and our strategic goals more closely than an allopathic medical school.
Okay, good explanation. Thank you. John Trevelyan asks, how will admissions for the medical school ensure that applicants and potential matriculants into the school live and contribute to a Catholic ethos?
Well, I'll preface any of this by saying that all these admissions discussions are, quote, hypothetical, because the school is not accredited yet and has no permission to solicit any students for admission. This is a proposed school. However, that being said, when the time comes, we welcome all students, just as the Catholic Church loves and welcomes everyone. However, the school will be in a faithful Catholic framework. Students will have a spiritual direction program, whether they're Catholic or not. We don't require people to be Catholic, and if somebody comes that's a faithful Muslim or Presbyterian, we'll have spiritual direction programs consistent with their faith. We will have a code of conduct and a code of behavior that students will have to adhere to. And all the employees of the medical school, whether they're Catholic or not, will have to sign a mandatum of adherence to Catholic principles. All the senior leadership and board of directors of the medical school are Catholic, and several of the bishops that you all know, Cardinal Burke, Bishop Strickland, Bishop Boyer, Bishop Conley, Archbishop Corleone, Archbishop Naumann, are on our board of directors. So that will ensure the Catholicism of the school. Jere may have some comments about that too.
No, absolutely. And like I said before, we consider this a seminary for the formation of the healing ministers of the church. And we very fondly call ourselves, we're going to be the most Catholic medical school in the world. And I remember I was at a Catholic Medical Association meeting, and somebody walked up, a doctor walked up, and he says, well, how can you say that? You know, what's going to make you so much different? Well, it is all in the way that we structure. It's all in the curriculum. It's all in the culture. It's being on the campus of Benedictine. But even more so than that, it is the spiritual direction program that they'll have all the way through, so that they will be very well-formed Catholics or well-formed in their spiritual tradition, and that with an understanding of the Catholic teachings, but also that joint degree, which is something far beyond what anyone in the world has ever required in Catholic bioethics and medical theology. First of all, I don't think that degree exists anywhere in the world, but all of ours will walk out, graduate, knowing everything that the Catholic Church teaches, and immediately walk into their communities and their hospitals and their practice settings as the thought leaders in Catholic healthcare delivery. And the beauty of all of this is, you know, I talked about the secularization of Catholic healthcare. And we can't go out and really make changes to all the Catholic systems around the country from above and that. But these physicians showing up in their campuses or in their hospitals are going to say, this is not the way Catholic healthcare is supposed to be done. This is not the church teachings on it. Here's how the church teaches. And from the grassroots basis, they're going to come in and they're going to make the changes. So that's the beauty of it in the formation of these, and then going out as disciples and witnesses around the country. We will change the culture. And it's so consistent with what President Minnis said. Their vision and their mission and their mantra is to change the culture in our country. That is ours also, to create a renaissance in Catholic healthcare delivery from a grassroots level up, yet to provide a home base and resource for them to come back when they're under attack for continuing medical education in the tradition of the Catholic Church and continue retreats and spiritual direction and things like that. So it is really, really a beautiful, beautiful new way of looking at the formation of Catholic physicians.
All right, great, thank you. Another question, there are 2 other new Catholic medical schools that are opening, one at Christendom and one at Duquesne. All 3 express a strong desire to be intentionally and faithfully Catholic. Are you collaborating with these other new medical schools?
Yeah, we are not. We are not aware of the school at Christendom. I have not heard anything about that. The school at Duquesne, on the other hand, is actually accepting students. I know their leadership and their dean. He's a good Catholic, a good faithful individual. That being said, if you look through Duquesne's website, you have to go through a lot of pages before you find the word Catholic. I don't think it's too hard to find Catholic on our website. It's pretty out there, but I do respect what Duquesne's doing, and we hope that we'll serve as a model for what a Catholic medical school should be. We hope that Duquesne will as well. As I said, the existing Catholic medical schools have not really acted very Catholic, but we hope that some of them may turn around. We believe that that all Catholic medical schools should be at least in the form of ex corde.
All right, very good. Dr. Stephen Samut has another question. If unfounded and inappropriate scientific or medical decisions are made by the hierarchy of the Church, how does such an institute like the medical school ensure continued and absolute loyalty to the Church teaching in the face of internal assaults?
Yeah, I think the Church sometimes suffers from a lack of detailed information, and they make decisions or fail to make decisions more often because they're not fully informed. And of course, technology and medical technology moves very quickly and can be very complicated and sophisticated. And the best example of that is with the ethical controversies in vitro fertilization. The Church has not really weighed in to a large degree on this because, again, the technology is moving fast, and I'm not sure where they're getting their scientific information from. And of course, technology is different in different countries. So we would hope to provide and be a resource for objective information about the science and then boil things down to Catholic principles. At the end of the day, Catholic principles are very, very simple. A respect from life, from conception to natural death, as created in the image and likeness of God. I mean, that is a very, very simple and straightforward proposition. So if you look at Church dilemmas like the frozen embryos after in vitro fertilization technologies, if you just look at it as very simply, these are simply human beings that are alive. Okay, maybe they're on ice, but they're not dead. They're human beings. And Catholic Church teaching as regards human life should apply, whether these are cared for or adopted. to understand the science and the resources. But yeah, it takes some education.
All right, thank you. Deacon Rick Athey asked, can you expand on the recruitment of Catholic hospitals and clinics for the 3rd and 4th year clinical training?
Sure. We have a relationship with the Franciscan Alliance in Indiana, which in our view is the most faithful Catholic healthcare system. We also are developing a relationship with OSF Healthcare out of Peoria, which is another very faithful Catholic system. That being said, we've also been contacted by smaller Catholic healthcare systems around the country that seem to be faithful as well. And of course, we're developing a national network of physician preceptors and clinics that will be adherent to faithful Catholic teaching as far as bioethical care. So our students will do their 3rd year core clerkships in these approved and vetted facilities. And then their 4th year can be conducted in these facilities or in elective rotations around the United States with the assumption that they're vetted and approved by the medical school to be consistent with Catholic bioethical principles. Students will also have a rotation with the CASA in Italy, at the CASA hospital, and potentially other Catholic hospitals around the world. That'll be a limited kind of a 1-month elective rotation in the 4th year, but it'll give students a good exposure to the philosophy of care at San Giovanni Rotondo.
Yeah, it's interesting. I talked a lot about the secularization of Catholic healthcare, and it has been very widespread. But interestingly enough, there are a couple of systems that really have stayed faithful. And George mentioned the Franciscan Alliance, and I've known the chairperson of their board, Sister Jane Marie Klein, for many, many years. And when the issue of Obamacare endorsement and the contraceptive mandate and those things came out, actually, they immediately, the very next day, withdrew from the Catholic Health Association, that professional association of 600 hospitals we talked about, and put a full-page ad in every one of their areas where they have hospitals explaining why they withdrew from that and why the importance of staying faithful to the teachings of the Catholic Church. The other thing that we've had is a very long-standing alliance and good relationship with the Catholic Medical Association. And as divergent as the Catholic Health Association has gone in some ways with the hospitals, the Catholic Medical Association, which is the Catholic Association of Physicians in our country, has really stayed faithful to the church, to its teachings, and to their commitment to it. And we came over, my first participation with them was in 2009 after we signed our collaboration agreement over in San Giovanni Rotondo with the hospital over there. Their annual meeting was in Springfield, Illinois that year. It was 2 weeks after we signed the collaboration. The patron of the meeting was Padre Pio, and the theme was the relief of suffering. And so they invited me to come and announce the collaboration that we had signed with them. And obviously they were ecstatic. I've heard over and over again, this is what we've waited for our entire career, to really have something like this be developed by the church, consistent with the church and consistent with the premises of the theology of suffering and the Catholic bioethics. We have been a part of the Catholic Medical Association ever since then. I presented many, many times, and we actually signed our agreement with Benedictine College last year at their annual meeting in Denver, and to a standing ovation of 700 plus physicians, healthcare providers, and religious. And it was a beautiful thing. And we will continue. And they have, George has said, we have offered preceptorships, and we've gotten dozens and dozens of preceptorships from around the country of Catholic physicians who want to take on our students for rotations also.
That's great. We have another question, one from Gretchen Marsh. She says, as a family physician who has successfully integrated all OMT into her practice, I'm concerned about the overreach of the AOA, which has become just as politically correct as AMA. Osteopathic principles and practices integrate and are respectful of magisterial teaching, and the hands-on approach is especially important for those suffering to all degrees. I have interviewed many prospective students who look at osteopathic medicine as a backdoor or just the same. How will you integrate OMM into the curriculum? As a certified neprotechnology medical consultant, I'm concerned about how will you integrate all the advances made in faithful Catholic research?
Yeah, that's a good question. We intend to integrate OM throughout the curriculum. In a lot of osteopathic medical schools, OM is just sort of an add-on that's glued onto the curriculum, and you go to the lab for an hour or two a week and you study to pass the exam, and that's all you know about it. So we will have an associate dean for osteopathic integration that will integrate osteopathic practices and principles, including manipulative medicine, but other osteopathic practices and principles throughout the curriculum where appropriate. We'll also have, on to the other part of the question, directors of research that will integrate Catholic bioethical research into the curriculum, both basic biomedical research, that is the benchtop research, but also social science and community health research consistent with Catholic bioethical principles, sort of like some of the work that we've seen done by Dr. Semut and some of his colleagues into social aspects and social media's influence on gender ideology and gender ideology identification in teenagers.
All right, very good. Mike Oslantz asked, how do you expect to change the national culture of the medical issues you address when membership in the Catholic Church continues to decline at an alarming rate? He asked another question, will the decline in believers, especially among younger generations, create roadblocks in your program? And do evangelization efforts need to be part of your venture?
I think evangelization efforts are part of the venture. You know, we feel like there's not a room or a desire for diet Catholicism, right? There's a lot of diet religions in the world. And we see that the parishes that are doing well, that are maintaining their membership, are actually the Orthodox traditional parishes, because that makes sense. The Lord asks a lot of people called to him. And if you're going to have milquetoast, or as I call it, diet Catholicism, I also like to call it the butt Catholics. You always hear them say, well, I'm Catholic, but. So the butt Catholics, there's really no reason to pick Catholicism over any other religion, right? If you're going to pick and choose from a cafeteria menu, it's not surprising that that aspect of the faith is declining. So we believe that we're going to attract, by our traditional orientation, students interested in this and faculty interested in this. Certainly, even at this early stage where, again, we are not at all trying to recruit anybody and we're prohibited from recruiting students, but we still get phone calls from potential students. We get phone calls and letters almost daily from potential faculty saying, I've been waiting for this all my life. I think we're taking sort of the if you build it, they'll come approach to this. We know there's a pent-up demand for faithful Catholic medical education. When people right now look around society and the world and say, am I the only one that's normal here? Well, what's going on around me? I think there's a lot more of these people that are looking for this. So we're confident, at least in our success and our ability to move the culture to the extent that 150 physicians a year can. But again, that is a multiplier effect, right? Because these physicians will be leaders in their hospitals and communities and thought leaders and be able to stand against the culture of death.
You know, we learned from St. Paul, John Paul II, people really do want to hear the truth. They may tell you they don't, People need structure in their life. But he didn't water down the faith at all. And particularly with young people, he was very straightforward. It's a commitment, and sometimes it's hard, and you will be persecuted. But do what God tells you, speak the truth, follow the truth, and you will be rewarded, and God will take care of you in that. And we're taking the same approach. We're unabashedly and unapologetically Catholic, and we don't hold back. We are we are the most outspoken in Catholic bioethics. If you read Dr. George's blogs, we don't mince around because people don't have time for that. People need to know the truth. They respond to the truth. And once they know the truth, and the truth has a small t and a capital T, the capital T is Jesus Christ, but he taught us the truths about all these Catholic bioethical issues and that sort of thing, and we need to follow them. So we're going to teach the truth. And frankly, I think we're going to see the rise as parishes and congregations. If you notice, there are a few congregations in our country that are thriving. And what are they? They're the ones that spend time in front of the Eucharist. They're the ones that spend time in prayer. They're the ones that are traditional. They wear habits, and they really, really do live their faith. And the young priests that are coming out of the seminaries now really have what I think is a very refreshing, deep love for the faith and knowledge of the faith. So I think speak the truth, live the truth, and the faith will be revived in our culture, in our society, and in the way that we deliver healthcare.
Okay, very good. We'll take one last question. This is from John Marsh. He says one of his concerns is mission creep. And he says, time and time again, we see Catholic institutions infiltrated by non-Catholic people and secular management. They fundamentally change the Catholic mission. The worst example of this is in Catholic parochial schools that unfortunately are largely secular and have fully integrated the poison pill of DEI. What are your plans to prevent this from happening?
Well, it goes back to ex-courting and our leadership. We are mandated, and it lives in our bylaws and our organization documents, that the board of trustees has to be Catholic and all the executive leadership has to be Catholic. So we're held to that. So it would be impossible for non-Catholic leadership to come and change the direction of the school. I mean, could Catholic leadership get together and change the direction of the school? I mean, I suppose anything's possible, but they're going to have a hard time changing the direction of people like Cardinal Burke and Archbishop Cordileone. These men and women of faith are very strong in their beliefs, and we think that this good board of trustees and good executive leadership will keep this faithful, as will the leadership of Benedictine College. There's a reason that we're on Benedictine College, and that's being a spiritual home and guide North Star, if you will, for the medical school also. So it's a mutual relationship, and I think it keeps us all focused on Catholic truth.
Yeah, mission creep has been an issue, no doubt about it, in education and in our school system, and it's a real shame. It has been equally as bad in Catholic healthcare, and you heard me talk about the secularization, the transition from congregationally run to corporately run systems almost across the board. Every Catholic hospital system in the country is being run by a corporate leadership. No longer, they were almost all exclusively by congregational. So they kept their focus on the mission when they did that. But you know, in our case, absolutely, you saw me refer to the 7 elements that Cardinal Burke laid out so simply and so profoundly, and a couple of them referred to the leadership of the hospital, the system, and the medical schools, and those has to be Catholic. I don't care if you say you agree and you believe with everything in Catholicism. If you have not made that jump, there is a disconnect there still. So you've got to have people there who really do believe in the faith, take the faith to heart, live the faith, and therefore are able to be an example and witness and teach the faith through the work that we all do.
Okay, very good. Thank you, both of you, for entertaining the questions in the Q&A. I'm going to turn it back over to Sebastian to close things up, and then we'll get to our closing prayer shortly.
Thank you, Sheila, for your moderation of our Q&A. And thank you, everyone, for your participation in this webinar. We are grateful to President Stephen Minnis, Jere Palazzolo, and Dr. George Mychaskiw for your presentations. And a special thanks to Deacon Michael Giuliano, who led us in our opening prayer, and Deacon Rick Athey, who will lead us in our closing prayer. Deacon Athey is a psychiatric physician and currently serves as a deacon at Holy Apostles Parish in the Colorado Springs Diocese, where he is involved in ministry with the Marriage Tribunal, exorcism ministry, persons with disabilities, and Catholic mental health issues. Deacon Athey.
Let us pray in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Father in heaven, we ask your blessing on this endeavor to start a medical school where doctors will be trained to carry on the healing ministry that Christ began 2,000 years ago. Christ was the great physician who came to heal the sick in body, mind, and spirit. He demonstrated that a ministry of service to others in need involves loving them and caring for and valuing each individual. We pray that this new medical school will be a beacon of light to the world, demonstrating healing through true Catholic doctrines. We live in a world torn apart by the confusion of what is right versus what is wrong. But our Lord left us with truth, that every human life is precious and deserves protection necessary to reach each person's full potential and God-given destiny. Physicians have a responsibility to do no harm, to not take any life, but to respect and honor the life of each person we serve as our patients. God has given those who provide such medical care with the knowledge, the skills, and the tools necessary to treat those in need. For this, we are thankful. We are also thankful for all of those who have been called to participate in this endeavor, motivated by the Holy Spirit, to begin a medical school where physicians and other healthcare providers can learn, by teaching and example, what it means to work in a healing ministry motivated by the love and principles that were left by the example of Christ and his disciples. We therefore ask for the prayers and the physical and financial support of all those who wish to see this new medical school succeed. Christ performed many miracles of healing, and with the help of those who care about the sick, the suffering, and those in need, there is assurance that with faith, such miracles of healing can continue. Lord, we ask you to send your blessing upon all those involved, and we pray for success in this endeavor. The Lord be with you, and may Almighty God bless you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Go in peace to love and serve the Lord.